on the earth.
or a phantom of night that has no home, or one that lieth dead in the desert, or a ghost unburied, or a demon, or a ghoul. Whatever thou be, until thou art removed, thou shalt find here no water to drink. Thou shalt not stretch forth thy hand to our own. Into our house enter thou not. Through our fence break through thou not. We are protected, though we may be frightened. Our life you may not steal, though we may be scared to death.
Eek.
Welcome to Scared to Death, Creeps and Peepers. I'm Dan.
Hi, Dan. It's me, Lynze.
Hello.
Hi, I know you.
Hello, I know you.
I know you.
Thank you for all the continued ratings and reviews. Thanks for subscribing, watching Bad Magic Productions on YouTube. I'm feeling good today. I feel full strength.
Yes.
My glasses, I didn't realize I could just bend the frames and they would hold shape, and so they're tight on my head.
Fantastic.
That was a problem the last few weeks.
That's one of your Time Suck sponsors, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Felix Gray, yeah.
I was going to pretend that there was a demon in my sweatshirt and go like this because I'm wearing like this giant sweatshirt and I look huge and frumpy. So I was going to be bumpy in the frumpy.
You look fine. You look good. We'll have pictures today. Lynze has pictures. I have pictures.
I have videos.
Videos.
Which is, I mean, people are going to shit their freaking pants.
Nice. And we'll put that stuff on Facebook and Instagram later for those of you who are unable to watch the show. And new merch for the creeps this week. Not sure the peepers can handle it. An awesome spooky Ouija board tee now in the store at badmagicmerch.com.
No, thank you.
Also, a little more toned down Ouija hoodie. I really like it. I like
it is
both.
So cool.
The artwork is great for both. I think I'm going to grab myself that hoodie.
You are?
Mm-hmm. I like it.
Can you not wear it around me?
No, I'm going to wear it wherever.
I'm going to get a planchette and start spelling things out on your chest.
Good. Well, I got a creepy new tattoo that's kind of, spooky and that vibe.
I wouldn't call it creepy.
Not creepy. Spooky. I shouldn't say creepy. Spooky.
Spoopy.
Occulty. Spoopy. Quick address. I know we're trying to get, into the stories as fast as possible.
Yeah, but we need a second to acclimate.
That's right. We got to welcome people to the show. And also got a lot of emails from UK listeners about the Enfield poltergeist story from 3 episodes back. Specifically for our making fun of Peggy for not leaving the home despite her daughter Janet's supposed possession, despite constant poltergeist activity over a prolonged period of time. Brought to our attention that Peggy and her family lived in council housing, which is a form of government-assisted housing, basically low-income housing, homes specifically built for low-income citizens, families who cannot afford to live in a home where the rent isn't unregulated.
Yeah.
Just left to ride the kind of market. And it came across to some as we were making fun of Peggy for being poor. Mm-hmm. We didn't know what council housing was. We don't live in the UK. Lynze and I have both been poor. I had government subsidizing growing up for a time as a kid. Yeah. I know Lynze.
I grew up on food stamps. Yeah, I get it.
So we were not shitting on her for being poor. We were shitting on her for seeming to not do more to help her daughter. So we are in light of this new information.
Mm-hmm. We're making a change.
We're making a change. There's not going to be any more Don't Be a Peggy. We're going to wait for a female character who is more gratuitously kind of terrible in their choices.
Just like Darren.
Like Darren. A more worthy equivalent of Darren for the female equivalent. So don't be Darren, And if you're one of the listeners that was furious that I didn't do enough socioeconomic research to properly fully understand the financial situation of one of the main characters, then this isn't the show for you. And I say that without malice or spite.
Sure.
It's just that these are campfire tales. Right? These are stories designed to spook, designed to scare, not designed to analyze and dig deep into the details. I hate watching horror movies with that type of personality.
Oh, it ruins everything.
It ruins it. It completely ruins it.
Totally.
It's to me, horror is like improv, like yes and.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
If you do an improv game with somebody who's like, oh, then I was walking through the ice cream parlor. I'm like, no, you weren't. But then it ruins it. And if you're watching a horror movie where you're like, get out of there, you got to get the fuck out. And somebody's like, well, actually, there's probably a financial situation that's really kind of constraining them to the home. And if you think about it, they might not have their savings account built up. Shut the fuck up.
Right. That takes all the fun out of what we're doing.
Yeah, you're ruining the story. So going forward, Lynze's going to keep reacting to my stories. That's always going to be part of the show.
Sure am.
I'm going to keep reacting to hers. We're going to just have fun getting into it, being scared, enjoying these tales. We're going to, try to make it as scary and fun, as entertaining as possible. We hope that people continue to enjoy it. Those of you who don't, best of luck finding what you do like. And we hope to find more people who do like what we're doing.
Yeah.
So that's all. So little nod in that one situation, little caveat where it's like, yeah, we could find somebody better.
Sure. Yeah. And we do feel bad. I mean, we just didn't know. So it's like, we weren't being dicks. We weren't being rude. What, like all the adjectives that you guys threw at me.
Right. But that being said, you can do that to any one of these stories. If you want to pick them apart, horror's the easiest to pick apart.
Yep.
So there you go.
So let's move on. Dan, what are we talking about this week? Do you have 2 tales for me?
I have 2. How many do you have?
I have 2.
Okay, great.
I have 2, and I have video.
I know, I'm excited.
Oh, God.
Because and are yours more traditional, kind of like poltergeist, possession type in that world?
Well, my
spirits?
first one is somebody caught some stuff on camera.
Okay.
That is definitely like,
what is that?
a big what is that?
Okay.
And then the next one is a little bit more traditional the sense of like something in a house. And I loved it because it was like, oh my God, I feel like I say this every week, but it seriously could have been me and my girlfriends when I was 16. I'm like,
I like that there's a little bit more traditional.
Because what do you have?
Because my shows are a little bit different, which I like.
Your shows are a little bit different?
My stories, my shows. I'm going to have shows for you.
You're doing a show.
The first of 2 tales I have is the 2008 disappearance of Brandon Swanson.
Well, I'm not into disappearances.
This is a very uncomfortable, vanish without a trace, story coming in from Minnesota. Makes you wonder if something not of this world has something to do with it.
Probably.
For the second story, this is very different. We head to New Mexico and dig into a tale about a cryptid we haven't talked about yet on Scared to Death, the Skinwalker.
Ooh, okay. So
Super
many
creepy.
people have been asking about Skinwalker Ranch.
Okay, now this is not Skinwalker Ranch, but it's interesting. That is a little different. That we might do that one down the road.
Yeah.
This is, I'll get into it later, what a Skinwalker is. Skinwalker Ranch, there's more of an extraterrestrial kind of bent
I see.
to that sightings that occurred at that location.
Okay.
The actual Navajo legend of Skinwalkers is, especially in this story, more about cryptids, like monsters, like a possible real monster.
That sounds fun for me.
So this first one requires a little bit of setup.
Okay, can I just show off what socks I'm wearing this week?
Yeah.
Okay, they are a low cut, super fuzzy,
Low cut
super
socks.
cozy, super comfy. Can you guys see? They're like, oh, look at my moves.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're little.
Oh, what is it? What noise was that? What kind of creature makes that noise?
A non-cryptid.
A non-cryptid, so it's an identifiable species. Mm-hmm. That makes no sense. So it's a real animal. Well, then what is it?
It's a non-cryptid, inhumane.
Gibberish.
Fuzzy wuzzy.
Okay, it's a non-cryptid, inhumane, fuzzy wuzzy. That makes sense. They're cute, or whatever it is. Okay.
I'm not good at this.
Okay, I'm going to set this story up.
Please take the pressure off me.
Brandon Swanson was your average 19-year-old. Born and raised in Marshall in southwest Minnesota, Brandon graduated from the Marshall High School, 2007. Brandon had a passion for science, wanted to pursue higher education, so after graduating, he enrolled in an engineering program at Minnesota West Community and Technical College in nearby Canby, Minnesota. He was planning on transferring to Iowa Western Community College in Council Bluffs, Iowa. A few months later, in August 2008, he wanted to enroll in their 4-year engineering program. Tuesday, May 13th, 2008 marked the last day of his classes for the semester, and Brandon and his classmates decided to celebrate. A bit of a going-away celebration.
Okay. Brandon
was leaving the next semester, and during the summer, his friends would be scattered working part-time jobs and vacationing. The group had a few drinks in the nearby tiny 450-person town of Lynze, Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Between 10:30 and 11 p.m., Brandon left the celebration, drove to another friend's house just 30 minutes away in Canby.
Okay. I'm picturing like where you grew up.
Yeah. Very rural town. Yes, exactly. Brandon wasn't known by anyone to be a big partier. He hadn't had much to drink in Lynde. Didn't appear to be anywhere close to drunk when he left his friends there. When he made it to the Canby party, he had a shot of whiskey. Then he left around midnight to head back to his hometown of Marshall. No one remembers him having much to drink in Canby other than that single shot of whiskey. He definitely didn't seem drunk or high to anyone. He seemed clear-headed and in good spirits, and there was no reason for him not to be in good spirits. It had been a good semester, and he was, by all accounts, excited to see what the future was going to bring him.
Mm-hmm.
But Brandon would never continue his education in Council Bluffs that fall. He would never make it. Time now for the tale of the disappearance of Brandon Swanson. Using State Highway 68, which is a direct route from Canby to Marshall, Brandon set off for home. It should have never taken him more than 40 minutes tops to get there. It was a route he had traveled literally hundreds of times. but for some reason, he veered off course. He got his car stuck in a ditch along a gravel road near the highway. He tried to call his friends back at the party, but none of them answered. Just before 2 a.m., Brandon called his parents, Brian and Annette Swanson, and asked them for a ride. He told them he was between Marshall and Lynze, which was odd because Lynze was not along this route. He reassured them that he wasn't hurt and that he was nearby. Barely 7 miles separates Marshall and Lynze. But when his parents got to the location Brandon described, they didn't see him. Annette called him on his cell phone, and they decided to flash their headlights in the hopes of seeing each other through the dark night. Annette could hear Brandon flashing the car lights on the other end of the line, but she couldn't see him. "We're flashing our lights," she said. Frustrated, Brian responded, "Don't you see me?" They didn't. Annoyed that they couldn't see him, Brandon hung up on his mom. Then Annette quickly called him back. He apologized for getting irritated, and then Brandon told his mother that he noticed the lights of the town of Lynze ahead of him. Talking to his mom, he started to walk towards the town, and he described a parking lot in Lynze that they all knew very well, and he asked his parents to meet him there. His parents stayed in the line with him as he walked. Along the way, walking along a gravel road, he saw 2 fence lines, and he heard running water. The call lasted about 47 minutes. Brandon seemed a bit lost, but otherwise fine. And then all of a sudden, Brandon yelled, "Oh shit!" and the call went dead. And that was the last time anyone would hear from Brandon again.
What the fuck?
His parents called him back over and over. He never answered. The phone rang each time until it was the next day when the calls began to go straight to voicemail. His parents huddled in that cold, dark parking lot waiting for hours for their son to show up, tired and muddy, but safe, but he never did. At 6:30 in the morning, Brandon's parents called the police to report him missing. An officer at first told him to wait. It wasn't unheard of for young men to go off the grid for a while, especially after partying, especially when girls were partying with them. Annette and Brian told the officer it wasn't like that with Brandon. They'd been on the phone with him for almost an hour. They were certain that something terrible had happened. They pleaded with the officer to file a police report. What about the oh shit they'd heard? What had Brandon seen in the darkness that had startled him? Finally, the officer agreed to file a report. And here's where the strange story gets stranger. Cell phone records show that when Brandon was talking to his folks, he wasn't even remotely close to where he thought he was. He wasn't anywhere near Lynze. In fact, he was over 20 miles away. None of this made any sense. This wasn't a confusing area. He knew this area very well. He wasn't new to the area, wasn't new to town. How did he not know where he was? He didn't seem disorientated or drugged when he talked to his mom for 45 minutes. Police began searching for him around noon. Brandon's Chevrolet Lumina was quickly recovered about 1.5 miles north of Taunton. Taunton was almost exactly halfway between Canby, where Brandon went to school, where he was last seen, and his home in Marshall. 13 miles from Canby, 17 miles from Marshall. How did he get so lost roughly 15 minutes after leaving this party? Lincoln County Sheriff Jack Visecki would tell CNN it was off the side of a field approach and the vehicle was hung up. It's sort of a sharp incline, nothing major but enough that the car would get hung up so that the wheels are too high off the ground to get any traction. But the car wasn't actually damaged, and there wasn't any evidence Brandon had been hurt. So what had happened to Brandon Swanson? The police launched a massive manhunt, expecting to quickly find either him or his body. Over the next few months, over 500 volunteers, emergency services, and law enforcement officials used walkers, boats, horseback, all-terrain vehicles to search areas of Lincoln, Lyon, and Yellow Medicine counties and various bodies of water, including Yellow Medicine River, several miles away. In searching the area that phone records had linked Brandon to, investigators noticed a red light atop a Taunton grain elevator. Is that the light Brandon saw? Did he think that light was coming from Lynze?
Oh, yeah.
But if he did walk towards that light, why couldn't they find a trace of him now? It was as if Brandon had vanished into thin air. Authorities ended up coming to believe that Brandon must have fallen into a body of water and drowned. They had zero evidence pointing towards this. It's just what made the most sense to him. How else could he have so thoroughly disappeared? They weren't going to officially list a paranormal reason. Search dogs did pick up Brandon's trail.
Okay.
A 3-mile trail that largely followed the field roads west-northwest to an abandoned farm, then along the Yellow Medicine River to a point where a small stream entered it. They concluded that Brandon probably fell in the water, which is why the dogs lost his scent. But this was a small creek, a slow-moving river. They also felt he should have easily managed to get out and continue walking.
Right.
The temperature that night did go down to around 39 degrees, so Brandon may have succumbed to hypothermia. But again, if that was true, where was his body or his clothes or any scrap of evidence that he was ever there, other than these dogs, picking up his trail? Eventually, authorities called off the search, and family and friends of Brandon continued to look on their own, using their own money and determination to organize multiple additional search parties. They scoured over even more ground, using countless dog handlers. Divers searched a variety of nearby rivers and lakes, including that, yellow Medicine River, where he had last been kind of, I guess, the scent of him was found.
Yeah.
The predominant theory, nothing was found. The predominant theory about Brandon's disappearance is that he fell into the Yellow Medicine River and drowned. But if that happened, again, why didn't his parents hear a splash over the phone? Why did he never, mention approaching this body of water that he had said was near him?
You'd hear it.
And the biggest thing, why wasn't his phone traced to a spot along the river? Why was it instead traced to an entirely different location many miles away? If a wild animal had attacked Brandon and carried him away like, some suggested, they would have likely found some sort of remains. Also, Minnesota, not exactly filled with grizzly bears and packs of wolves. Unlikely that happened.
Right.
And then finally, there are the lights. Investigators think that the lights Brandon saw, again, probably came from the top of that grain elevator, but that's a total guess. What if they came from something else entirely?
Exactly.
What else produces lights in the sky? A UFO? What if the lights came from some craft not of this world, a craft carrying beings from a planet we don't know about? And what if seeing one of those beings is what caused Brandon to yell, "Oh shit," before the call was lost? Hopefully Brandon is still alive. Hopefully "oh shit" weren't his final words. Maybe he ended up going on a journey much different than going to a new college. What if he ended up traveling much, much further away than Minnesota, from Minnesota, than a small college in western Iowa?
Yeah.
So just another one of those odd disappearances where they're so rare in today's age with all of our digital technology and everything, where usually, almost always people find something. And what I just thought was so weird about this story and made it a little creepy was, and I'll show you some pictures here. I really looked at this area a lot, and it's such a rural area. And there's not a lot of roads and things, and it's just one of those places where, it reminds me of where I grew up, where there's no way I would get lost. Ever be going
how
could you? How could you going from like Riggins to like
Whitebird
or something
or just like whatever,
Grangeville, that whole area. There's not that many roads, and then for him to talk to his parents for so long but not seem disorientated.
Yeah, he was fine.
Right. They never and they had no reason to hide. Like there's no motive for them to say that he wasn't when he was. It's just very odd. And then the detail of the "oh shit," call going out, the weird thing where his phone showed him in a different location than where he supposedly was when this happened,
right,
where the scent dogs were. Those two things don't match up.
Right.
I guess the dogs, could have gotten it wrong.
So unlikely.
And then the lights.
I guess he could have thought he was in a different place, but then why didn't he sound disoriented? And my thing is, if he was by water, it sounds like this is a pretty strong, powerful river.
It's not really that, and I'll show you a picture.
Oh, the Medicine Lake,
Yellow Medicine River.
Yeah,
that's the one he did. He knew there was running water nearby, and then they determined that he was most likely walking by that river.
But wouldn't you hear it on the phone when he was on the phone with his parents, or it's not?
Well, when he fell in, there should have been you would think you'd hear the splash of something. I guess he could have. Yeah, you would think that you would hear something. Like you hear when you're talking to somebody on the phone and they drop their phone, you hear it.
When you're on the phone with somebody and they wash their hands, you hear it.
Right.
So
right.
I feel like something is amiss here. Something is not right.
So here's a picture of Brandon.
Oh,
poor dude.
Sweet, geeky little engineer guy.
Mm-hmm. Young dude.
Aww.
And again, he wasn't new to the area. It's just so weird that here's this next picture is a highway. Just kind of give the outside of Marshall, this highway, just to show the type of terrain.
Right.
It's not
so
even
was it just a straight shot? Was it just a straight shot from I'm going from here to here, and this is the only
pretty straight. Mm-hmm.
This is the only way to get from A to B is just this straight shot.
Unless there's little county roads and dirt roads that don't show up on the map.
Right.
Fishing around a lot on Google Maps. Yeah, it's like a state highway. It's not a huge state highway. Yeah, just this little one lane in each direction.
Yeah.
And again, this part of Minnesota is not it's not all filled with all these crazy canyons and crevices where people could get lost, or it's not driving through the bayou where there's a swamp where it'd be easier to get lost. It's just not that kind of terrain that lends itself to that.
And again, because he's lived there his whole life,
right.
He should know where he's going. This is weird.
And then this next picture is the river. So to me, it's and I'm sure this happened at the end of the school year, so it would have been actually I have to go back and look. I think it was the spring. Now I can't remember.
Yeah, well, if he's in college, right? So it could be like May, June.
Yeah, it was cold.
Because you said people were going to be going off on vacations and.
Oh yeah, May 13th. So I mean, that's when the river's going to be higher. But it just doesn't look like, again, with the terrain, like it's fairly flat.
Right, it doesn't look like...
It's not like the Salmon River where I grew up.
That's what I was thinking.
It's not a raging river.
Right, you're not going whitewater rafting here. It seems very peaceful.
And then last picture, just to lighten things up a bit, I was looking for Yellow River, and then that reminded me of Yellow River by I.P. Freely.
Oh, my
And so I Google
God.
image search Yellow River by I.P. Freely, and this is the most random sculpture installation at like a little, what's it called? It's a sculpture park in Kiev, Ukraine.
I love it.
Called Landscape Alley. Just these little dudes, different colors, just peeing over the trail.
Everybody pees the same. Red, blue, green, yellow, we're all the same.
Yeah, so random.
Okay. Well.
Yeah. But so crazy story.
Yeah, I mean, I always have this thought when we talk about someone disappearing. Mm-hmm. Would you rather that your child just disappears without a trace, or that you find remains?
I mean, both are such terrible options, but
Awful.
I would rather know. I would rather know to have some type of, good or bad. It just like, I think the not knowing year after year, just my brain would be worse. It would just tear me apart in a different way.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure you never recover from the sadness of finding something terrible.
right.
And people could argue like, oh, you could hold out for hope, but I don't think I wouldn't. If once it had gone past, several weeks, my daydreams wouldn't be like, oh, I bet things are really good. My mind would go to the absolute worst places because of all the terrible stories I know about.
Oh, so you're thinking that like if you don't find them, they're tied up somewhere being tortured to death.
The worst.
Yeah. I go back and forth because it's like, okay, if some alien just abducted them, if they just went to the ether, if they're just gone, and like, sure, maybe they miss me and they have memories and all of that,
Right.
but like, they're safe and happy, I guess.
I guess that's a little asterisk. If there was signs of extraterrestrial stuff, if I could convince
But like
myself,
in this situation,
right, the aliens, then maybe that would be better.
Because of course, that's where my mind goes. But then like finding remains, in some ways I think it's worse because then there's the possibility that that your child's final moments
were terrible.
were terrible.
Yeah, that's also terrible.
I'm watching the Gabriel Fernandez story on Netflix, which
Right.
I am so
my
mad
God,
at
it's
myself for
terrible.
starting because I didn't remember hearing anything about this whatsoever.
I remember getting mad when the story broke.
Well, again, I remember none of it. This is all new to me. So I started watching it and I was like, oh, is this like an investigative piece on LA and on the way the city council works there and like what the state's doing? And then 30 minutes into fucking episode 1, I was crying and upset, but now I'm like, I have to watch it. I don't have to. I'm choosing to watch it because I want to know what happens to the people that tortured him.
Right.
But so as you're telling this story, I'm like, oh my God. Like you just, I don't know what I think would be worse.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this next story is more. I think more. I think this is scarier. We're gonna shift from extraterrestrials to actual monsters, not ghosts or aliens, monsters, cryptids, and I love this story.
You do?
Yeah.
Why?
It just has a real spooky, like when I envisioned this kind of concept for this show and like tales to kind of tell by the campfire. This is like a perfect campfire story.
Oh, great. Oh, damn, that sounds great. Hey, Dan, how'd you do Home Alone in the house this weekend?
I did fine actually.
You didn't see the ghost?
Nope. You got me worked up for a second. Want to talk about? No, I usually get so tired by the time I go to bed that I just whatever. I had a fleeting thought, like I wonder if I see it, but then I'm like, well, if it's not causing problems, whatever.
That's new. Mm-hmm. So you thought you saw it?
No. I was saying if I did, and if it's not causing problems, whatever.
Okay, I've never seen anything in our house. I just feel it. So it didn't feel weird in the house this weekend?
No, it's quiet. Peaceful. Peaceful. It's quiet, peaceful.
It was a house full of pee. I was in a hotel by myself, and I also didn't really feel anything. Mm-hmm. So is it just me in the house?
I think it's your imagination.
Of course you think that. All right. I just wanted to ask you that while I was thinking about it before you tell me this really scary story.
See,
that
I'm like,
stalling.
I am the guy in the story. Like that's why so many of these poltergeist stories, it's always like somebody sees something and if the other person doesn't see it, they're always like, well, it's their imagination. That always makes so much sense to me because that's exactly what I think. Like, I'm not saying that you didn't, but until I hear
But I've
say
never-
something, I'm always going to think it's your imagination.
I never said I saw anything.
Feel it, whatever. Which leans even more to me thinking it's your imagination.
Okay, well, remind me later.
Yeah.
After we do my stories. I had an interesting thing happen in Reiki last week.
Okay. Okay, so
You fucking agreed to have it done, my friend.
I know. I want to see what the fuss
You're
is about.
Such an ass.
Some believe that a special kind of evil that exists in the quiet, restless deserts and deep sandstone canyons of Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and parts of Colorado, Montana, where grasslands melt into dusty orange mesas, with no cities in sight, no lights but the stars overhead. Some believe that something evil is lurking in these places. It hides in the mouths of caves and shady overhangs. It's an evil far older than me or you. Time now for the tale of Navajo Skinwalkers.
I'm already scared.
July 15th, 2017. 3 friends piled into a car, drove to a cabin well outside of Farmington, New Mexico. It was going to be a good night.
I'm sorry, did you say 2017?
2017.
Okay.
It's going to be a good night. The 3 friends, Andrew, Zach, and Dante, were celebrating Zach's 23rd birthday. But since 2 of them had to work the next day, they decided to scrap their original plan of heading over to Las Vegas in favor of hanging out at Dante's parents' remote woodland cabin. They brought weed, beer, video games, and then after a couple hours, the fun of being young and drunk began to wear off and they got bored. And then Dante had an idea. What if, he asked his friends, they went and explored the old abandoned barn nearby?
Well, that's dumb.
Dante's parents had been telling him not to go near it since he was little. And they always seemed kind of scared of it, and now he was scared of it too, but it was just a barn. So why not go explore it? They could look for ghosts, see what they could find, have a little fun in the dark, getting scared. Maybe they'd get a good story out of the whole ordeal.
Oh, dear.
A little high and a little drunk, everyone agreed to go check out the barn. The barn was a 20-minute walk away through what used to be farmland, but now is, overgrown abandoned fields.
Wait, they're just walking through the fucking dark?
There were no other buildings in sight, no lights to walk by except the flashlights on their cell phones.
Oh my God, you guys are idiots.
And the weak light of the moon, which was partially covered by the clouds. Andrew trailed a little behind the others. It was so quiet, but he could still pick out certain sounds, his footsteps crunching in the grass, the chirping of insects, an odd high-pitched whistling sound occasionally. Like a wolf's howl combined with a scream somehow. What was that? The barn loomed in the distance, red paint peeling. Andrew checked his watch. It was around 9, but it seemed so much later. It seemed darker than it should have been for the summer. Dante walked to the door, slowly pushed it open, and then with a shriek he jerked back. A pile of chains fell from the door and dropped where Dante had been standing. They looked old and heavy, like they could have really hurt him if he hadn't moved back. Laughing nervously, he and his friends walked into the barn. What the hell were those chains even doing there? Had they been used to tie something up? Once inside, the 3 friends were completely submerged in darkness. Andrew shone his phone flashlight around. He and his friends saw the place where horses must have come in the beams that held the hay. Then he swung his flashlight around to the other side of the barn and he screamed, and then his friends screamed as well. Across the barn stood a tall white figure with glowing eyes and an arched back. It had 2 folded back legs, 2 long arms. It was almost completely hairless, almost translucent. Its claws curled, and as the boys watched, wiggled in the air as though testing it. It stared at them, and they stared back. Were the chains for this thing? Did this thing use the chains to tie up something else? Run, Andrew screamed, and they did run. They all ran back out of the barn and took off across the field, breathing heavily. Zach stumbled and looked back. The figure was in the doorway of the barn now, watching them. It tilted its neck, and Zach heard the pop of its joints. They ran back into Dante's parents' cabin and deadbolted the door. What the fuck was that? Asked Andrew. I don't know, Dante said, but I sure as hell don't want to find out. Zach was curiously quiet. His face was white, and when the boys decided that they wanted to sleep in the living room floor, he kept fidgeting. Eventually, he said he couldn't sleep on the hard floor and asked his friends if he could take one of their bedrooms. Dante and Andrew were surprised. Why didn't Zach want to stay with the group? Why would he want to be alone right now? It was weird.
That's not good.
But they didn't want to argue with him. Zach went into the bedroom and Dante and Andrew fell asleep in the living room. And they didn't stay asleep for long. At 3:30, a piercing scream rang through the cabin, a scream like a wolf's howl combined with a human voice again. Dante and Andrew sat bolt upright. Zach! Dante yelled. But was that Zach? That scream didn't sound like Zach, but it had to be, right? There was no one else in the cabin. They'd locked the door. They raced down the hall and tried opening Zach's door, but it was locked.
Oh, God.
They pounded on it, screaming his name. No answer. Desperate and worried about their friend, they tried to kick the door down. After a few tries, the door shattered into splinters at the edge, and they saw Zach curled into the corner of the room, his knees covering his face, and he was crying.
Oh, my God.
It's okay, it's just us, his friends kept saying. But Zach pushed them away, told them to leave him alone. He looked scared and angry and confused. Then at that moment, they heard something heavy scramble down the hall and barge through the front door.
Oh, God.
Something other than the three of them had somehow been in the house with them. They ran outside with a flashlight and saw the same tall white creature from the barn moving jerkily as it ran, as though it wasn't used to its own body. They locked the door and called emergency services, but Zach wouldn't say anything to the EMTs when they got there. To this day, Zach will not talk about what he saw that night, and they've never been back to the barn since.
Come on, Zach.
So what did they see? Many who've heard this story say that they encountered a skinwalker. A skinwalker is a cursed human able to transform into other creatures like wolves, bears, and birds of prey. A creature born from Navajo legend. The Navajo name for this creature, a word I will not even attempt to pronounce, translates to, with it, he goes on all fours. And according to Navajo legend, skinwalkers are witches who used to be humans, and Navajos have been talking about encountering them for hundreds of years, maybe longer. They're the opposite of a medicine man. Traditional Navajo knowledge passed down orally by medicine men and women through the Navajo language is positive, healing knowledge, how to heal your body, soul, and heart. Skinwalkers do the reverse. They perform twisted ceremonies and manipulate magic in a perversion of good works medicine men have traditionally performed and seek to harm instead of heal. The Navajo believe that some people can achieve supernatural powers by breaking certain cultural taboos and practicing dark arts. There are secret Navajo rituals that these people can perform, certain dances and ceremonies where they can learn how to curse instead of how to heal. And some of those who learn these dark arts become a sort of witch. And people who attain the highest rank of witchcraft, people who have become pure evil, these people can become skinwalkers. According to legend, killing a close blood relative, incest, necrophilia. Completing one or more of these or similar horrible acts can destroy one's humanity enough to open oneself up to a level of darkness necessary to become a skinwalker. And one of the main characteristics of these skinwalkers is the ability to take the shape of an animal. Skinwalkers are usually seen in the form of coyotes, wolves, foxes, cougars, dogs, and bears, but they can take the shape of any animal. And then when they transform back into human form, witnesses have described skinwalkers as sometimes looking like hollowed-out creatures, something in between a human and an animal. Is that what Dante, Andrew, and Zach saw out in that barn in New Mexico? Something in between? And skinwalkers are said to have other supernatural powers, able to run faster than a car, able to leap up in the air hundreds of feet. Skinwalkers are also supposedly able to sort of hypnotize those who dare to lock eyes with them. They can then control another's thoughts and actions. After taking control, the skinwalker can make the victim do and say whatever the skinwalker wishes. Did the skinwalker take control of Zach? Did it force him to do or think something horrible? Is that why he acted so strangely? Is that why he wouldn't talk about the creature they saw that night, whatever happened to him in the cabin in the barn? Skinwalkers are also supposedly able to mimic and even steal your appearance. Is it possible that the person that Andrew and Dante saw in the bedroom wasn't even Zach? Those claiming to have seen skinwalkers often, if not usually, find themselves unable to talk about it, which is perhaps why the Navajo community is so reluctant to share information about skinwalkers with outsiders. It's only recently that stories of skinwalkers have proliferated on the internet, which begs the question, how many people throughout history, throughout the settling of the American West, have seen them? In the early 20th century, many people were found bloodied and torn apart in the woods, and then those attacks were chalked up to animals. But were they animal attacks? How many times have people spotted an animal in the distance and felt that it looked oddly human? Navajo legends describe the way that skinwalkers supposedly kill their victims, and it's the stuff of nightmares. Sometimes they will literally tear their victims apart.
No, thank you.
Other times, if they're in their human form, skinwalkers use a powder called corpse dust, also known as corpse poison or corpse powder, to poison their victims. Corpse dust is composed of ground infant bones.
Ew.
Often twin infants, especially bones from the fingertips and the back of the skull.
What the fuck?
The skinwalker blows this bone dust into the face of their victim or down the chimney of the victim's home. And when the victim breathes this dust, their tongue swells and blackens. They begin to have convulsions, and then they die choking on their own blackened tongues. Skinwalkers haven't just been spotted way out in the dark woods either. At least one story involves skinwalkers making their way through a prison. Prison itself is normally a terrible place to be.
Yeah.
How much worse would it be if you were locked up with a murderous monster picking inmates apart? This is supposedly exactly what happened to a man named Ray when he was in prison. Here's Ray's story as he tells it. It began with the prison legend. I'm going to start over. It began with the prison legend. When I went in, one of the first things I heard was that something awful had happened in this prison, which was the reason for increased security measures. A year before I'd gotten there, the prisoners were standing near the front of their cells while the guards confirmed they were present and accounted for. When the guards got to a cell at the end of one of the rows, one of the prisoners looked off. When the guard asked another guard to come check it out, they saw that the guy was dead.
Oh.
And the guy he shared a room with was nowhere to be found. The guards reported this to their superiors, but there wasn't much else they could do. But the really awful thing, the hideous, horrible thing, was that the dead guy was missing his skin.
Ugh.
Yes, he'd been skinned as if someone had peeled it off to wear it. Hell of a story to hear about your home for the foreseeable future, right? Well, a couple of the guys in there were convinced that there was a skinwalker in this prison. How else could the guy have disappeared? And as they compared stories about the guy the dead man had shared a cell with, they realized they all had different impressions of him.
Oh?
They couldn't agree on the color of his hair or the shape of his face. They knew he was hairy, had a strange expression on his face, but that was about it. They thought, with the help of a Navajo inmate who told them a bit about skinwalkers, that maybe the skinwalker was a low-level witch, couldn't steal faces, so he'd simply tried to rip the poor man's skin off and wear it. I heard about this story on the second day of my stay. There wasn't a lot to do when we were working, so I would talk to the old Navajo guy a lot. He told me that skinwalkers are tricky to point out on the spot, but if you manage to survive around one for more than a minute or two, almost everyone can tell that their mannerisms are all off. They can mimic human speech, but not totally replicate it. They twitch. They have an unnatural gait while walking. The old Navajo guy, his name was Jack, said that he was sure there was an actual one amongst the prisoners. He thought that the skinwalker was slowly picking us off over the years because we couldn't run, couldn't hide. In Jack's mind, the skinwalker was just posing as another inmate for a while until he got the chance to kill again. Jack called it a master skinwalker. He said it had perfected its human mannerism so well, you wouldn't be able to tell if he was your cellmate, which got switched up every couple weeks, so as soon as you learned that what some guy was normally like, you got put with someone else. Some of the guys thought all this was funny. Bunch of superstition, but a lot of the guys, I could tell, were scared. They all knew someone in prison who had snapped under the pressure of not knowing when the skinwalker was going to come for them. Guys would come back to their cells to find their cellmates swinging in front of their bunk, sheets wrapped around their neck. At our yard, I noticed people snapped in a different way. They wouldn't kill themselves or start fights in the mess halls. Every so often, guys would just stop talking. They'd hunch over and shuffle around. Any friends they'd made would be told to go away. They'd become complete loners, shuffling around during rec time with their hair hanging in front of their face, and they didn't want to talk about skinwalkers.
Weird.
It was like they thought if you talked about it, it would happen to you next. I thought it was just people going crazy. Every time they stopped talking, they got shipped out or transferred to another prison. At least that's what I thought. No one ever told me what happened to them, so I figured they got moved somewhere across the country. But maybe something else happened. Shuffling around during the day was nothing compared to what happened at night. I would lay awake in bed hearing loud cries echo down the cell block. It sounded like an animal dying, maybe a pig. An odd screeching sound like nails dragging down a chalkboard. No one ever said anything about it. Weird shit happens in prison. You get used to it. You shut it out. But what I couldn't shut out during the night by putting a pillow over my ears was the shadows and the footsteps. At night, shadows, strange shadows flitted across the walls. I strained to hear if it was the guards, like if I could hear keys jingling or a cough, but I never heard anything. Once I woke up and looked over at the back wall. There was the perfect outline of a person standing there. Definitely a human shadow. But when I looked, no one was outside my cell.
Yeah.
My bunkmate was asleep. When I looked back at the shadow, it was gone. And the footsteps, everyone hated the footsteps because they kept you from sleeping. During the night, you could hear these footsteps going at a weird pace. I would hear a couple patters, then would stop, then start up again. Maybe it was a guard doing some weird dance step, I thought at the time. Who knows? Whatever made these noises would sometimes fly from one end of the block to the other in a dead sprint. It was weirdly fast. By the time you heard the footsteps on one side of your cell and whipped your head around to see the thing run by, it sounded like it was 3 cells past you. I got released a couple years back, and in the weeks leading up to my release, I thought for sure that I would snap. My bunkmate stopped talking.
Oh, God.
And then some friends of mine stopped talking. I stayed awake at night, hoping I could preserve some of my sanity. Once, as I was trying to remember the plot of a movie in my head to keep myself awake, I saw my bunkmate snake his body through the bars of the cell.
What?
I'd never been able to get anything past a shoulder through them, but this guy warped his body around the bars like it was nothing. And he wasn't leaving, he was coming back in. He was doing something no human should be able to do. I thought for sure that I'd die that night and that someone would find my skinless corpse the next morning, but I guess I wasn't the chosen target. I left a few days later, finally a free man. It had been almost 10 years of yard fights, bad food, hard labor, and those strange, sleepless nights. I left through the gates and walked along the fence of the rec yard, seeing all the guys, some I'd liked, some I hadn't. I was leaving for good. And then I spotted my strange, inhuman bunkmate, standing off to the side with his hair hanging down over his face like he had for the better part of a few weeks. I also saw Jack, the old Navajo man, who told us how to recognize the Skinwalker. I wish I hadn't. He was standing by himself. He was slouched over, eyeing the other inmates, and strangely twitching. Had the Skinwalker gotten him too? Or had he been the Skinwalker the whole time?
Yikes. That was 2 stories in one.
Mm-hmm. Little two tales of the Skinwalker there. So it's it's a creepy legend. Check out these pictures of what this thing is supposed to look like.
No, thank you.
This is a sketch. Mm-hmm. No. This is a sketch of like this is like shifting. You. No, you gotta check it out though. So that's just like a weird sketch. And then the next one,
I don't like it, Dan.
Altered image of what somebody thinks a Skinwalker would look like.
Oh God.
And then
it has like a weird like nymph kind of.
Right. And then another photo of right.
I don't like that.
Such a creepy thing out in the woods. And then this last photo is like the like an actual Navajo man dressed in the witch attire. Like the Skinwalker.
Oh, okay.
Right, the traditional, like a bad medicine man.
Yikes. That's almost scarier.
I know, that one's so creepy to me.
The one on the right.
Mm-hmm. Yee. Yeah. So interesting legend though, right? I like we haven't really done many of those, like folklore type, legend cryptids, and the Skinwalker, just such an unusual, just interesting.
Well, we've been getting a lot of emails asking for Skinwalker.
Now, the Skinwalker Ranch, I will say, is more of, I've looked into that story, and that's a ranch called the Skinwalker Ranch. Some people think that on this ranch, there's been a bunch of weird sightings over the years, and some people think like Skinwalkers have something to do with it. Some people think that the quote-unquote Skinwalkers are actually extraterrestrials, and that's more the angle, I think, of that story. But I'm sure we'll do it someday.
Oh, I'm sure we'll get there. But I had never heard of it.
Okay.
At all, and then people sent in emails. And to be honest, I'm not Googling what a Skinwalker is. Like if you send me a link, I will email you back and be like, I'm not clicking that fucking link.
Yeah.
There's no way. I'm not looking at dolls for sale. I'm not going to Skinwalker Ranch websites. No. I am just barely hanging on as it is. Like I am doing pretty well these days.
Yeah, you are doing pretty well right now.
So like, let's not fuck up the balance, man.
I love those kind of stories though, just because, especially growing up in like a rural place where, like if you're camping, like we would go camping as a kid, not in a campground. We would go way out in the woods where there's nobody driving by. There's literally no other campers. They're just like, your group. Mm-hmm. And then, a lot of times like the kids' tent or whatever would be put a little farther out, because we wanted to be away from everybody or whatever. And just, it's so dark at night when you're really out in the woods. And I just picture some cabins I would see out in the woods where I grew up, and like walking around through the woods late at night. It's just inherently spooky and creepy.
Well, those three are fucking idiots. Walking through a dark field.
An abandoned barn.
With nothing but cell phone flashlights? So you mean to tell me you didn't even bring other flashlights? You didn't bring a weapon? You didn't
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't tell your folks hey, we're going to go check it out.
Right. Well,
so if something would have happened to them.
Sure.
Dumb, stupid, dumb.
I would totally go if I was one of those guys.
Well, I wouldn't. But then again, you don't want to be the guy who's back at the house by himself.
Right.
So I guess you have to go by proxy.
Yeah, if you're hesitant.
Yeah. And And that prison story, huh?
I know, yeah, just an interesting, story from the web of some guy's, account. And
Yeah.
And again, like I said, I haven't said it in a few episodes. We're aware that yeah, sure, we weren't there. Somebody could have made these stories up.
But I think that there's rumblings that Alcatraz is haunted. I wouldn't be surprised if prisons are haunted. Think about how many people die in prison.
Different way than like the Skinwalker story.
Sure.
But as far as poltergeist activity, yeah, a lot of prisons are supposedly,
Well, prisons are usually old. People die there regularly. It's a place
people aren't
unhappy, violence, vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it seems logical to me that a prison would be haunted. Have you ever been in a prison? Like, I know we did Alcatraz together, but
yeah.
Excuse me. When we lived in LA and I worked in production, there were a couple times when I had to go film in old prisons.
Yeah.
And not even like that old. They were just, maybe they were shut down for whatever reason.
Funding went away or something.
Yeah, or like maybe a new one was built, but then what do you do with the old one? And so, it's LA, everything becomes a TV or a movie set.
Yeah.
There is something inherently spooky and uncomfortable about being in a prison.
I mean, similar to like the old mental asylums, where just any place that's like they weren't built for comfort. They weren't. So there's that whole thing where it's like it's similar to a house or like an apartment building, but it's just so sterile and industrial.
Yeah,
and not a place that looks happy. So it has kind of probably just an angry I wouldn't want to be here. Yeah, one of these days I want to tour like an abandoned mental asylum, from years past. Like at night, so many horror movies have been filmed in those places for a reason.
Well, it's great because our first story takes place in a mental.
No way. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and before we dive into it, again filming in LA. I can't believe it. Like you never had to go, but what is it called? The Linda Vista Medical Center, I think. It's in Echo Park.
I've heard you talk about it.
Holy shit. If anybody in LA is listening to this and is in production and has been there, I have heard so many stories. And I have been in that place and I wouldn't walk alone by myself, middle of the day, like, can you run back to the wardrobe room and grab something? Not by my fucking self, I can't.
Right.
No way. Like, I remember some DP telling me that the hospital rooms were connected in all these weird different ways, and you're working. So like you've got all your camera equipment he would had set up here,
yeah.
and so this was one room, and there's like a connecting bathroom or something, and then this is the other room, and he got locked in a room. He was all by himself, middle of the day, no one around. Your cell phones don't work in this place because it's just a giant cement building,
right?
And he was trapped for like hours.
God.
Until somebody was finally like, "Hey, where's so and so?"
Yeah. I can't remember if this is just really quick. I can't remember if I talked about it here or not, but like, did I tell you about, I'm sure I did. When I was at Gurney for a little while, that production company that was doing like those various reality shows, there was I can't remember what show I was even working. I think it was like like you, in that world, you would get stuck like doing pre-production on shows that might not even go to air.
Totally.
And I think this was one of those. And then the guy who was the showrunner on this show, his main experience had been in doing haunted shows. I'm blanking on it. Doesn't matter. But like, I remember him telling me, because I was so curious. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, is that stuff real? And his first thing was like, he was like, no. He goes, 99% of the shows or whatever he worked on, they actually fabricated all of these scary events.
Sure.
The production company, crew would plant things.
Yeah.
They would mess with the talent to make them think they had seen things that was just them.
Yeah.
But he said there was one show. And this is a guy who couldn't have been more jaded.
I just got chills all over because it just takes one.
Yep, because he was so jaded. He had worked on a million of these shows and he was like, all this shit is fake, blah, blah, like that. It's so creepy. And he said there was one show, he wouldn't even say exactly what he goes, he would like get a weird look in his eye. And he's like, just a lot of stuff happened that was really hard to explain. And they got really spooked to the point that they brought in somebody to do a cleansing of their production office, a cleansing of a thing. And 2 people strangely died on this production. And the one, he said on one particular episode where a lot of weird shit happened, this guy went into the editing bay over the weekend in the production company.
Oh my God.
And when they came back that Monday, he was fucking dead at the computer.
Oh my God.
He was eating something, watching this show, and choked just randomly on whatever he was eating and died. Like it at the chair. And he said it freaked him out.
That just freaked me out because who chokes to death?
I know, just and specifically on the one show that they were having problems with. But because when I asked him, after I'm like, before that, I'm like, oh, so you don't believe in any this stuff? That was the show that changed him. Where before he was the guy planning stuff, so of course he thinks it's all fake, and then that one weirded him out, which weirded me out.
Well, let's get into a mental hospital.
Okay.
Oh, buddy, do you have your squishy wishy? And so at the end of this, we're gonna have 3 short videos.
Okay.
And you saw me when I was prepping this story because I kept just going.
I know. I was like, what's going on over there?
Mm-hmm. No. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
So, and yeah. I just think that like maybe things hang out for a minute after they die. That's my new consensus.
Okay.
I feel a little bubble in my belly. So I'm just going to apologize now if all of a sudden a little burp comes out.
Okay.
I just feel it. There it is.
There. Okay. Good.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so this email comes in and says, hey, so I'm a peeper since day one and I love y'all's show. Been listening to Dan stand up for a while too. I work as a lab tech at an Arkansas State hospital. Now, when they wrote this story in, they were more specific about where it was, but I removed the name because they still work there.
Got it. Okay. So
it's just somewhere in
hospital.
Arkansas.
Yeah.
It's an acute psych facility that's been open since about the mid 1800s, and it's a lockdown facility and has been since it opened.
Damn.
Very mentally ill patients have been through those doors.
Yeah.
We all know that treatment for the mentally ill now is much different and much more therapeutic than it once was.
Mm-hmm.
We all know how horrible insane asylums were back at the turn of the century. So to say that spirits are floating around here wouldn't be too far-fetched.
Yeah.
You hear creepy things sometimes and definitely deal with some folks who are battling some of their own demons. Now, I don't have a scary story to go along with my videos because I don't engage with them at all. I'm a true peeper. But what I have, and the reason why I'm messaging y'all today, are 3 videos of what I believe are shadow people.
Now, did this person take these videos?
It's video of security video.
Oh, yeah. I'm already creeped out.
Oh, it's awful.
Okay, so for those of you just listening, we will make sure to commentate on what we're seeing.
Yeah, okay.
Oh my gosh.
And that these shadows people are walking in the halls next to our adolescent unit. Like I said, I've never been haunted by them, and I've never dared to try and speak to them. These are not doctored videos or fake in any way. I'm young, but I'm definitely not tech savvy. I totally get that. I don't really much believe in ghosts, and I like to think that most stories are fabricated, but these videos are absolutely real. Like y'all said, it only takes one story to be true. We caught everything on our surveillance videos that we have throughout the hospital. No patient info or patients are shown in the videos, so you can do with them as you wish. And then it just says, like, please don't exactly name the exact place that we're at.
Okay.
Thanks, y'all. And I'm not even going to say this person's name.
Because we don't want to get them in trouble. Yeah.
Just in case. So thank you, fan.
Thank you, Arkansas fan.
Okay, so producer Joe is going to, man, this is really frumpy. Going to queue up video 1. And just hold on, Joe. Before you hit play, I made some notes for myself. Now, assuming that I uploaded these properly.
Okay.
My note here is that you should watch the door handle. Yeah. Okay. So you're going to watch the door handle on the left-hand side. So you see the white wall and you can see the handle in like the lower left-hand corner and just watch it.
Okay. Okay, we're watching that door handle. It's like a sterile office lights. Just narrating for those listening.
Hospital hallway.
Yep, nothing unusual
Page for
yet.
it. Ah!
Oh, and then oh!
See it? See the black?
Yeah. Yo! Yeek.
Yeek. Okay, so Joe,
and like
if you
a
can...
weird kind of like
so let's
translucent,
watch...
but
it's translucent
shadowy.
and then it gets black and shadowy.
Yeah.
So Joe, let's watch that again. Now, I feel like the first time I watched it, I did the same thing that you did. You're waiting.
Yeah.
But now if you watch it a second time and you know what's coming, you're like, oh shit.
Okay.
We might not be able to see it here just because of the ratio of the video
right.
and, uploading. The door handle jiggles.
Oh,
That's what makes it creepy. So in my opinion, it feels like the door handle jiggles and it feels like a light orb kind of comes through the door. Jiggle.
Okay.
Orb through door and then black something kind of comes towards the camera and then back towards the door.
Okay.
Okay, so Joe, let's do that again.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh my God. God. Yeah.
Damn.
God damn it.
I mean, it is for sure something walking out that
That's
door,
so weird.
turning around and coming back.
That's so weird.
You can't deny that. You cannot deny that you just saw something.
Something's I mean okay, whenever I see things like that, my brain immediately wants to shoot it down because I don't want it to be true. And so my caveat would just be like, well, maybe there's just some trick of the camera where it's like a person gets superimposed on the footage in a way I don't explain. But I mean, that's just, I don't even know if that's possible. I'm just grasping at something.
Yeah.
Because just actually watching the footage, that gave me the chills. Like that's just, it's not pleasant.
No.
Yeah.
Now we have two more videos. Okay. So the second video, Joe's going to get it queued up. My note here is that to watch the far left corner near the exit sign by the main doors. So again, like we're in a hospital. We've got what you would think, like if you watch any medical show, anytime they've like rushed a gurney down a hallway, right? We've got the two doors with the very thin, long, rectangular little like viewing windows. It's almost...
Yeah, you push the bar in the middle of the door to pop the doors open.
Exactly.
I feel like I could be watching some old ER show or whatever.
And this is going into the adolescent unit. So Joe, go ahead and hit play and watch around the exit sign.
Okay, watching around the exit sign. This is the footage of the... So shit!
So
something comes down from the ceiling, turns into like a black blob of something, but it's like moving. That's weird.
Yeah, Joe, let's see it again. I think it's very human shaped. Look at the head.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh man,
that's terrifying, right?
That is not fun at the end. There, it does look like a head walking. That's so weird. Very creepy. This is very different. Yeah, just seeing these things. Oh my God. And we're watching, again, if you're listening, we're watching footage where, with her cell phone. His cell phone. I thought you said her.
I guess it doesn't even matter.
It doesn't matter. But with his cell phone, he is filming his like Dell computer screen. Right, looks like at work.
Yeah. It's security camera footage, and obviously that can't be removed from the place of employment. So he's taking video of video. So again, the ratio is not amazing, but it is obvious what is happening. Okay, so we've got one more. Joe, if you want to cue that one up, and for this one, I want you to watch the bottom of the screen. So you're not looking at we're at the same doors that we were at before, same kind of thing. This is all in one little hallway.
Got it. Yeah.
Going into the adolescent psych unit. Okay. Joe, go for it. So watch the bottom of the screen.
Watching the bottom of the screen. Again, just back in this like sterile hallway. You can see the glow of the fluorescent overhead light. Oh boy.
Buddy.
And then, God damn it.
It goes through the fucking wall. So
and then there's a little black shadowy thing that just comes across the screen.
One more time, Joe. Yeah, so it comes up from the bottom.
Yep, there it goes.
It's walking around, and then it goes.
What is that? That is so weird.
And mind you, this is the same hallway as the first video that we watched, where I said like the door is jiggling.
Yeah.
And
what is that? That's so weird.
I mean, and look at the shadow that it casts. I mean, it's just.
No thanks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Terrifying, right?
That is very, very strange.
I will tell you, it didn't. Yes, I mean it's creepy and it's scary, but it's almost like this person who wrote in said, he doesn't engage with them.
Yeah.
They've never harmed anybody. It's like, I think that there is the possibility that when we die, we're just kind of, especially if you don't go to the light or whatever, this is something that I talk about in Reiki that I've like shared with you. It's like, sometimes if you feel something hanging on, your best thing is to tell it, go. Like sometimes people don't know they're dead and they're just left like if purgatory, like you're just in limbo, you're just stuck.
I hope
so in a hospital. I think about how many people are stuck.
Oh yeah,
or possibly. I mean, if you want to engage in that train of thought, if you want to believe that it's possible,
sure. If it's possible, I want to have the wherewithal to do practical jokes.
Yep, I already knew where we were going.
I know, but that is truly what I want. That's why you knew that, because you know me. I would want to. How great would that be if you like had the consciousness to like fuck with people? I would totally be that ghost.
Do you remember? Did we ever talk on this show about what happened to you at the Viper room?
We did. Yeah.
Yeah, that was so long ago. So maybe that ghost was playing a practical joke on you.
Oh man. I wonder, what you could get away with, how I don't know what the, if it's real, like what the rules would be, like.
I've got a good one.
How you can interact with people. What would you do?
This is pretty funny.
Yeah.
if two people were having sex, doggy style, I would totally slap an ass.
Ooh. So
I just think it would be so funny if the receiver got an ass slap and they were like, said like, oh, like, ow, or whatever. But then the person in the back, being the pusher, didn't do the ass slap.
Man. Yeah.
That would be hilarious.
I just thought of a joke.
I don't know why that's so funny to me.
I just thought of a joke I wanted to do on Kyler from the Secret Suck, another podcast I do off of Time Suck, where somebody talked about a practical joke that got played on them as a kid.
Yeah.
It's horror related. Where you can get these little speakers that you can magnet somewhere and you can remote control.
Oh, yes. You told me about this.
Oh my God. And somebody had one that was it was like a little girl's voice, and they would just play it. It would be under the bed. There's all variations of this.
Yeah.
But so I don't even have to wait for purgatory.
You can just do it now.
I could do the things I want to do now. I could just get something, put it in. Is that too mean?
Kyler is a really heavy sleeper.
If he gets too freaked out, then we call it. And we'll tell him what we did. But just for a little while.
I don't think it's a great idea. Mostly because when something happens in the middle of the night, the kids don't wake you up. They wake me up. If they get sick, they come to me.
Yeah.
If I hear somebody get up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom, I hear them. So really what you're going to do is you're going to scare Kyler. I'm not going to get sleep. And then we're both going to be pissed at you.
Okay. I'll factor that into my decision.
Okay. Are you ready for one more?
Yeah.
Those videos were creepy as shit.
Yeah, super creepy.
Do you want to watch them again?
No, I'm good. We can do that after the show.
Oh yeah, you gotta see the door jiggle. It's okay. So I love this story. I think it's pretty scary.
Okay.
For a lot of reasons, but when I was young, as I think, I don't know what it is with young people seeking out the scares.
Oh sure.
But I think it's part of you think you're invincible.
That's the guy going in the barn.
Yeah. So these girls are even younger, and this is exactly the kind of shit me and my girlfriends would get into. Okay. So our fan writes in, when I was in my senior year of high school, I was out driving through our local haunted swamp with a carload of friends, trying to conjure up some good spooks before our girls' night in my house.
Okay.
I'm from a very rural area, so outside of attending an Amish kegger in the middle of the woods, this is all I had to do for fun.
Sure.
It's my favorite line of this whole email. At some point, I realized that we were already a good 10 minutes past curfew, and so we sped home quickly. We pulled into my driveway, and we saw that all the lights were off, and both of my parents' cars were in the driveway. So we figured that they must have gone to bed, and we thought we would evade a scolding and snuck into the house and piled up onto the couch. To set the scene, my house was in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by thick Pennsylvania forest. It had 2 stories and a finished basement that opened up towards the woods, sort of like a rancher on a walkout basement.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And an open floor plan with a wooden spiral staircase going from the basement all the way up to the second floor. The second floor was half my parents' bedroom bathroom, and the other half had an indoor balcony opening up into the cathedral ceiling in the living room.
Okay.
Can you kind of picture that?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Okay. We were all sitting on my couch talking quietly about what we were going to do when all of a sudden we heard my mom crying and calling my name like, Alyssa?
Yeah.
I called back to her immediately, and my closest friend and I started to head upstairs to see what was wrong. She doesn't answer us, and so she just keeps carrying on. Alyssa? Over and over, like she's on a loop. We get up to her room, open the door, turn on the lights. My parents' bed is completely empty and had not been slept in, and my parents are nowhere to be seen. At some point after realizing my mom wasn't there, the crying and calling for my name had come to a stop. My friend and I cast a quick, nervous glance at each other and then started yelling for my parents and looking everywhere for them.
Yeah.
Again, right as we realized that they were not there in any capacity, we start to hear the crying and calling of my name again in the same tone that sounded just like my mom.
What?
Alyssa! But now it sounded like it was coming from the basement.
Yeah.
I didn't stop to think about much of it, assuming that maybe the sound had been thrown in a weird way because the house did have strange acoustics. Maybe she had been in the basement the whole time. At this point, I was thinking that something really bad had happened, and maybe my mom was in complete shock.
Yeah.
I call back to her, and my friend and I start running down the spiral staircase as fast as we can. Now, this part I'm not positive about because it didn't happen to me, but my friend claims that something grabbed her ankle through the slats in the steps and pulled her down. If someone or something were under the stairs from the basement floor, it or they would have to have been over 7 feet tall to reach her ankle. We both fell on top of each other and rolled out onto the first floor. And just then, the crying and calling of my name got super loud and started to sound progressively more and more wrong, distorted almost. A wave of unease and panic washed over me, and I screamed for everyone to get out of the house. We all booked it back outside to my car. We locked ourselves in my beat-up Cavalier, but we couldn't go anywhere. I had left my keys inside. We started trying to call my parents, but their phones were off, and they didn't have service. About 10 minutes later, we see flashlights bobbing in the distance coming down the road. It turned out to be my parents, and they were absolutely fine. They had been at my neighbor's at a party about a mile down the road the whole time. They hadn't been home in hours. I told my stepdad that we were a little freaked out and he checked the house but didn't find anything. This is one of the only experiences I have had that I absolutely cannot come up with a logical explanation for.
Right.
All 5 of us heard the exact same thing.
5 of them.
It was 100% a mocking of my mother's voice, and it still freaks me out and this group of friends to this day. I lived in that house for several years, and we had other experiences there, but nothing of this nature. The house was built by my stepfather's father, and he also died in the house of a premature heart attack in his early 50s. I don't believe whatever we encountered was his spirit, though, because I've had other run-ins with him. As a rebellious teenager, I used to sit in my reading nook and smoke out the window while my parents were in bed. One night after doing this, I got up and walked out to the kitchen where I was greeted with what looked like almost a swarm of big black particles floating haphazardly around the ceiling. They then coalesced and started spinning in a funnel shape like a tornado and then took the form of a head, upper torso, and upper legs of a very burly man sort of hovering at about 7 feet tall. Its arm reached out with a pointed finger and swiped down at me.
What?
At that moment, I felt, more than heard, a very loud suggestion of the word no. And then the figure broke apart and the swarm of particles went back to the ceiling and flew out of the room. This happened to me when I was alone, so I have no validation, but I had always assumed that it was my stepfather's father who had built the house. Maybe he was upset with me for disrespecting him by smoking in his house. Because of having that experience, I know that whatever was mimicking my mother's voice was not the builder of the house. I tend to believe that maybe, just maybe, our town's local haunted swamp may have had something follow us home. We were trying awfully hard to conjure something up. What do you think, my peeps and creeps? This is from Alyssa in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Weird, right?
Yeah, super weird with the group all hearing the same thing, and I don't know, that's super weird.
Super weird. The crying of her, and her parents weren't home. No one else was there.
Yep.
And when you're all 5
That was good.
together.
That gave me some chills.
Yeah, and it's like, I know from, just this is what girls do,
Yeah, and you can work yourself up, and there's all those things.
Oh, yeah. And one of us would go to the bathroom and then come back and be like, oh my God, I saw something, when you totally didn't.
Sure.
Or you would, you would do something that would kind of throw off the group, but then you'd all start laughing.
Yeah,
I mean, these girls were scared.
I know it is funny where it's like, those things where you can rationalize it later, and you're like, okay, we just got ourselves worked up.
Totally.
But then every once in a while, there's some moments, maybe not for everybody, but for, I've had those too where you're like, but that one's weird. Mm-hmm. Like, I had one dream as a kid that it's not even worth sharing, because dreams can be so weird and scary to you, but to other people, it's just gibberish.
Yeah.
But it's like, it still creeps me out when I think about all these years later.
Funny, what happened?
I mean, again, it's a dream where it's just like, what? It's not going to translate.
Yeah.
But just that feeling of like that's off. And then there was one thing that's just not even a story, just a quick snippet. I just remember being in my, after school, like 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, I guess 7th and 8th grade. I would go down, my mom would still be at work, so I'd go to my grandparents, and then I'd go down to we lived in a little trailer, 7, 8 houses down, and when I got a little older, 6th grade, whatever like that, I could go down there. We had satellite TV. My grandparents didn't. So I could go down and watch TV by myself for a little bit before my mom got home from work, before dinner. And so I do that sometimes. And one time I was sitting there, it's so clear, and I was just sitting there, and there was like, you could look to my right and through my mom's bedroom to the little attached bathroom, and there was a mirror there.
Oh.
And there was this face in the mirror.
What?
And I had a Halloween mask. And I thought, and I'm like, oh, that was my... And so at first I'm like, that's my Halloween mask. And then I just had a feel, it still gives me the chills, that was just like, get the fuck out of the house right now. And I just
Yikes.
And I just left and ran back down to my grandparents. And I wasn't the kid who, like, this is the only time I had this experience as a kid. And then later, I remember asking my mom about that Halloween mask, because I went into her bathroom later and tried to find it, and it wasn't in there, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And I'm like, and it was just so clear that I saw like this face in the mirror, and man, that creeped me out.
Oh, now I know why you hate mirrors.
Yeah. And the dream I had was a mirror dream too.
Dream?
Little thing came out of the mirror and just got me when I was paralyzed.
Yikes. Well, I've been talking a lot about Reiki. And actually, I won't read it on here, but I got a really lovely email from somebody this week who just said, like, they were really dealing with some difficult stuff, and just, I think maybe consistent therapy, the cost of it is maybe not an option for this person.
Sure.
Or maybe it's just not their jam.
Sure.
But they did go to Reiki and said, like, not like it's a cure-all. It's not like, oh, I'm healed, everything in my life is so perfect, and I'm a millionaire, and I found the love of my life. Like, no, but they were saying, like, it did seem to relieve something from them, and they felt really, really good. And so they were grateful that I'm talking about it. So
okay, good.
Okay.
I'm not opposed. Yeah.
But when I was talking to my gal this past week, because you guys know, like, there's this old man that shows up a lot, and so she just said that there was kind of like a lot of like movement going on. But I asked her, I said, like, is the old man still there?
Yeah.
She was like, yep, he's still there. And I thought this was interesting. She said it doesn't always have to be someone that that passed away.
Okay.
It can be like
random.
Yes, but moreover, it can be like an ancestor. It can be just someone in your lineage that's just kind of like there, making sure you're okay. Like, it's not always bad. And for some reason, I've been sort of holding on to that. Like, I just think, I don't know, like seeing that video from the adolescent psych unit, I'm like, those black, white orb things, they don't have to be bad. I mean, don't be an idiot.
Sure.
Don't be like trusting them. But like that person who wrote in was saying, they don't engage, they don't. Yeah. I mean, I think things can just be around us, and it's just okay.
Yeah.
I mean, ask me next.
It could be a variety of things.
Ask me next week. Like, after I have some terrifying Skinwalker nightmares, I might feel very differently. But this week, I'm feeling like, okay, all right, it's not.
What's that thing do when it's near you?
The old man? Mm-hmm. She says he's just there.
Does he beat off?
Probably. I'm pretty hot.
Maybe you got an old jerker.
I'm usually naked when it happens.
Maybe you got an old jerkaroony.
Because it's like I've usually just like had like my waxing services done. And then I'm like, well, I'm already on the table. I'm not getting up to get dressed. So I am naked during Reiki. So he probably loves it.
Okay. Yeah.
I hope that spirits don't hang out when you're having sex or in the shower or going to the bathroom.
Really?
I just hope they have some decency.
I'm going to be a perv spirit. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do jokes, and I'm going to watch people do stuff.
You guys, also, I just want to talk about this again. This sweatshirt is so cute, but it's so frumpy on camera. I swear I haven't gained 75 pounds this week.
It doesn't look like that to me. I think you're in your head about it. Oh, no, not frumpy, not frumpy.
There's a bumpy in my frumpy.
Well, thanks for those stories that you guys have been sending in. I love the twist with the videos. Yeah, I was. Yeah. I got some good chills today. I got more chills today than I've gotten in a little while.
Yeah.
I like
those videos are fucking, man.
And part of it is I felt bad the last few weeks. I do just like feel like myself again.
Yeah, you seem better.
And it's harder to get into the stories because a lot of this, and that's what I was talking about at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
That's why I hate like the nitpicky stuff. It's like so much of a horror movie, in my opinion, depends on the environment you watch it in.
Yeah.
Where it's like you could watch the scariest horror movie ever made, but if you watch it in a fully lit place and somebody is being like, "Hi, guy, what? Nah," like just like making fucking stupid noises, it wouldn't scare me. I'd just be like, "Shut the fuck up."
I think I just heard Harmony laughing out there.
Shut the fuck up
with your weird, "Hi, guy." That was a very obnoxious voice.
Right. I've been to movies where
Yeah.
like one person's voice, I'm like, nope, doesn't matter. This could be the greatest movie ever made.
Yeah.
I will not enjoy it because of shithead McGee who has to have that voice or whatever.
Yeah,
It has
yeah.
to- you know,
But it's not even just about horror movies. I think it's like all movies, right? Like,
but especially I feel
yes, but I'm
like,
just saying,
horror-
like,
yes.
But you can be in any movie, and if Joe Schmo over here is just mucking
Sure.
it up, whispering, it takes you out of the whole thing. It ruins everything. So I
Right.
just think that in this space, we're trying to create an environment.
Yeah.
We're trying to create
That's
a
why we got all
story.
our creepy little things around
Right.
us.
Like we're
building
not
some atmosphere.
we're not doing the biography
No.
of fucking Mr. Gnome or whatever.
Right.
But like,
And especially so for some people, if you come over from Time Suck, I mean, this is not Time Suck, and it never will be. You know, it's
No.
not for that. It's like it's
No.
and that's
it
why
doesn't have to be.
Yeah, and it's that's why I wanted, a long time ago to do paranormal stories in a setting like this more than on Time Suck, because I would prefer not to pick them apart.
Yeah. But I do feel bad about what happened with Peggy. I mean, when I was getting
Yeah,
those emails,
yeah.
the first one I got was really lovely that was like, hey, I just don't think you know. And I was like, oh, shit. Because I grew up poor. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and like, there's one listener out there that I really snapped back at. Like, basically said I was a monster for what I was saying. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Well, just so you know, I grew up fucking poor. My mom lost a house in a foreclosure. Like, if something like that had happened when I was growing up, we couldn't have fucking afforded to move. It would have been like, tough shit, babe.
I want to be honest, I don't feel bad at all for anything I said in that episode, because it's like
I just feel bad in retrospect because I didn't know that she was poor. I would have at least been like,
Yeah.
oh shit, she's really fucking stuck. I would still would have said, you got to get the fuck out, Peggy.
And that's the thing.
That's a natural reaction.
And that's the thing. Harm and I were talking about that before the recording today. And like, even like, okay, if you know the person's poor, you're going in.
Yeah.
What normal person is going to watch a horror movie where like the protagonist is getting harassed by demons, but they're poor, and constantly have this reaction of like, oh my God, you got to get out. Okay, I guess just kind of deal with it, because the financial situations have you constrained in a sense where I guess you just have to get fucked by the demon, and you're just gonna have to take it. Nobody,
Right.
You're still gonna be like, fucking live in your car. You're gonna have that reaction in the story, and again, that's what these are supposed to be. They're supposed to be like campfire. So if you're gonna get like easily triggered, there is a weird phenomena culturally around the world right now. And it's the vocal minority, thank God. We know that most of you don't care about this stuff. But there's that small minority that just like, they're waiting to be like, oh my God, how could you? Oh my God, how could you? I have that reaction to fucking nothing.
Nothing.
Like, I get mad about like about like pedophiles or whatever. But,
yeah,
but there's
legitimate
nothing,
things.
Yeah, like legit. But there's nothing you could say to me like, I could strongly disagree with you.
Yeah.
But unless you're, I guess unless you're like literally admitting, hey, there's this kid I molested. Or, hey, I fucking murdered this person last night. Like, if you're literally saying you did like a capital punishment type crime, yeah, but even then I'm not going to be like, oh my God, how could you? I'm just going to be like, motherfucker, I'm going to kill you. Or I'm going to call the police.
Right. I don't have that like outrage factor. Even like,
oh my.
how dare you?
Oh.
My favorite is like on social media, the things that people say. I'm like, okay, I can also just like delete that.
Right.
And now you'll be blocked. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Because why?
Yeah.
Why?
Why?
Why are you going out of your way to just be a fucking inflammatory dick?
Right. So I like to bring this up because for like the majority of the listeners, we're not going to overly cater to that.
No,
because we know that would ruin the show.
And can I just say though that I was grateful that someone like wrote in and was like, "Hey, just so you know, I think it's a language barrier thing.
You know what? Fuck Peggy. Fuck her. No, I'm just kidding. I was kidding. Hey, JK, just for funsies. Come on, guys. Come on.
I was grateful for the kind emails that came in that were like, hey, just so you know, because I actually am glad. Like, I learned something new.
Me too. I learned something new.
And then, it might affect a story in the future, or I might meet somebody who's like, sharing their life story. I always think about like the later effect of that on my life. Like, what if we meet somebody who's from the UK and then you're getting their life story and they're talking about council housing? It's like, oh, hey man, like I grew up poor too. Like it's just the human condition. It's nice to, right?
So we're not monsters, but we're not going to overly, exactly.
Yeah, that's it.
Exactly.
I could go. Yeah.
You keep going.
You want to, okay.
We keep going for us. Keep sending your stories into my story at scaredtodeath podcast.com.
Oh man, they've been rolling in. There are some good
I love
ones.
it.
It's so hard to pick. So just know, guys, like I've got 1 million stories, and what I've been trying to do is like pick one that's like a little bit more recent that's been sent in, and then one that was sent in like a while ago.
Cool.
So that we're getting
that's great.
A little mix, and I hope we never run out.
I love them so much.
Somebody asked if we could make them into a book, like would there be a
Who
place?
knows?
So just know that like I'm keeping them, and We'll figure it out.
Keep telling your friends. We get enough listeners. We could totally do like some kind of book like that down the road.
So
Who knows?
cool.
It'd be so fun.
Yeah.
I'm already excited for next week's stories. Gonna do the first urban legend, which is another, I think, like classic. Like, I can imagine like telling it with some like when you're a kid in the dark and just scaring the shit out of each other with it.
Did you hear there's a new scary movie coming out?
No.
Hocus Pocus 2.
What?
They're gonna make. Well, it's not going to be scary, but they're going to make Hocus Pocus again.
I don't even know what Hocus Pocus is.
What?
I don't know. I never saw Hocus
Sarah
Pocus.
Jessica Parker?
No. I don't know what you're talking about. I really don't.
Bette Midler?
Nope.
The Big Cauldron? Hocus
that vaguely reminds.
Pocus?
I feel like I watched that with my mom when I was a kid. I probably hated
my
it.
God. Send help. Send help.
Thank you for listening and watching Scared to Death. Bad Magic Production. Thanks to the Bad Magic Productions team. Harmony Vellicamp, social media. Joe Paisley. Producing and directing. Zach Flannery on the team as well. And Sophie Evans finding so many great stories to help me out with those. And thanks to Joe Paisley, Zach Cohen, Jeffrey Montoya for the sound beds, Heather Rylander for taking over the My Story at scaredtodeathpodcast.com emails. Go to @Scared to Death Podcast, Facebook, Instagram, Bad Magic Productions on YouTube, and enjoy your nightmares, creeps, and peepers. Hope you were scared to death.
If spirits threaten me in this place, fight water by water and fire by fire. Banish their souls into nothingness and remove their powers until the last trace. Let these evil beings flee through time and space. Evil may pass through, but has no home here within, scared to death.